Jillian, thanks so much for being on the CRE Project podcast this morning. We appreciate your time. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to speak with you live after listening to hours and hours of your YouTube channel and podcasts. So it's a treat to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so glad. That's such an honor that you would watch all of that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's better than it's fantastic. I mean, I just soak it up. So it's music to my ears. And Clayton and I are in the real estate brokerage and development business, and we are aspiring syndicators and deal sponsors. We do that to a certain extent already, but we would like to scale and systemize and automate and grow and become better and more efficient. So we know that you can help us get there. So I guess starting off for our listeners, can you just explain to our listeners the benefits of having a fund versus, just a general LLC or a TIC and how a fund is different?
So a lot of times what people are looking at is they're thinking they have to find a property before they can start raising capital or start, moving forward with their real estate investing career, if you will, or enterprise. And that is not necessarily true. Now it may be, wise to start with a single property so you as a real estate investor can lean on that property as, here's what's so great. Instead of saying, here's what's so great about me, you can say, here's what's so great about the property, because you kind of have to shift the focus from the property to not just the marketplace, but also yourself when you're convincing somebody of doing a fund. But one of the great reasons for doing a fund is that you can go out and say, look, I know there's opportunities out there. I know there's opportunities out there. And then you point to all the reasons why there's opportunities out there. This market is hot. Here are the reasons why it's hot. We know that there's still available, there's diamonds in the rough out there that we can build up and build out. And so then you juxtapose that to your own personal experience. I've taken these diamonds in the rough before, brushed them off, and made them, glorious centerpieces of this marketplace where we made a ton of money, or whatever your examples might be. So the great thing about doing a fund is that you don't have to identify that property, but you're ready to strike when opportunity presents itself. And that's why I love funds, because I know that funds are usually getting the better deals. There's no time crunch. There's no real time crunch. There's always a time crunch,
Sure.
Time is a human construct that we all have to bend to. But unlike when you buy a property, you buy a property, there's a closing date. You've got to be ready for that closing date. The deal is done. There's not a lot of movement. But when you have a fund, you got your money, you're cash rich, you can go and make offers as you see fit and negotiate in a very a more relaxed manner. And you also have the cash ready, so you stand ready. You're a better buyer than other buyers who don't have their cash ready in a syndication model. So that to me is the reason why you might want to start a fund.
Absolutely. And thank you for that explanation. And just to further clarify, so if you are setting up your documents and your PPM and you've got your operating agreements and everything, I'm not 100% certain on all the documents you need, but if you have, for example, a 10% cash on cash and a 16% IRR, can you then go out and invest in any deal that hits those benchmarks without communicating directly with that investor pool? Is that accurate?
I'm going to give a very legal answer right now, and that is it depends, because it's not just the cash on cash return and the IRR. It's not just those things. It's also things like what market did you say you were going to go in? What asset class did you say you were going to go in? Did you, I dealt with this recently. I had a client who was like, we're going to buy Class A apartment buildings. and you know, cash flow ready, and then at the last minute says, oh, I also want to buy distressed properties. Well, distressed doesn't fit cash flow class A ready. So
Right.
you have to figure out, did you tell your investors this, or did you, you know, veer a severe left when you came down to buying properties? Now, let's just say you say we're going to start a self-storage fund, and you go out and you buy a self-storage property, and then you see next door there's an amazing mobile home park, senior living facility type of, you know, 55 plus mobile home park next to the self-storage facility. Okay, let's think about this for a second. People who are moving into a mobile home park for 55 plus, it's usually a nicer park for people who are, for, you know, boomers who are downsizing. Downsizing is the key. So those people in that park are most likely going to use your self-storage facility. And up comes for sale the mobile home park, but you don't have that written into your fund because you're a self-storage fund. What you could do is go back to your investors and say, look, I found this opportunity. We can't pass up this opportunity. And if you don't get consent from your investors, fear not, my entrepreneur friend, because what we can do is start a second fund and go and get that property. So you're never not without. You always can find a way to do the deal if in fact the deal is a good deal.
That's a great analogy.
So Jillian, really quick. So just taking a step back, and I mean, dumbing it down to like the nth degree, right? So we're like a dog chasing a squirrel. We finally get that squirrel, that being the deal. You know, now we're going to raise, you know, capital and start a fund.
Yes.
What are our first initial steps? What should one do?
Okay, so the first things you need to do is really have to figure out the why you're doing this. Number one, you know, that Simon Sinek, he knows what he's talking about. Start with why. You always want to start with why. And the why is never, by the way, is never because we're going to make a lot of money. That is a terrible, horrible, not good why at all. It doesn't resonate. Because I could tell you I could use that same why for cryptocurrency. I could use that same why for investing in marijuana. I could use that same why for anything, you know, gold bullion, whatever you want. Like, I could use that why. It's not a good why. You need to give me a why. So like, for example, multifamily was really, really hot, continues to be hot. But, you know, now we're in a space where people might not be able to pay their rent. So why multifamily now? Because people who can't pay their mortgage probably are going to have to downsize to apartments. And no matter what, someone always needs a place to live. And it is our responsibility as real estate entrepreneurs to provide safe, nice, comfortable living conditions to Americans who've been affected by COVID-19, which is all Americans, by the way. So like you're giving this message of, you know, we're the knight in shining armor. Now, you don't have to have that particular message, right? You could have any messaging, but your why should speak to something deeper, better, more meaningful than just ROI. Hey, don't even think about it, you two. Like.
Yep, that's great. So that all seems to be incorporated into the brand, your message, the philosophy of the company, and we agree that money can't be, you know, the reason why you're doing what you're doing. You've got to have a greater purpose.
Exactly. And again, I gave that knight in shining armor. I don't know what he's looking for, but I gave that knight in shining armor example, but it doesn't that's just one example of many. You have to really dig down deep and find what your particular why is. And then you go to the what. You know, what are we going to do? Okay, so we know what our why is. What are we going to do? And how are we going to get there? And then you just keep going through this pattern, and that's the story that you're creating for investors.
And is this what you are, or is this what investors are putting together in their executive summary or their pitch deck when you are trying to ramp the business up? and this is, you know, whether it's you or your company or a different company, when people are looking for consulting or coaching on how to build that image brand, is that something that's in that pitch deck?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what's in the pitch deck. That is what should be in the pitch deck. And you know, one of the people I've studied closely is a guy named, and if everybody wants to write down this book, is a guy named Oren Klaff, who wrote a book called Pitch Anything.
Yeah.
It's been around for a couple years, but it's still good advice. And in Pitch Anything, he talks about how your presentation shouldn't be longer than 20 minutes. You know, get to the point. If people are interested, they can ask questions. They can, you know, they can dig deeper. And that's where your legal documents come in. So the pitch is 20 minutes long. And if you just look at Shark Tank, like those pitches are like, what, 90 seconds long, maybe? And people get financed in a matter of 5 minutes. So if you think about this, and I know that's made for TV and what have you, and things have happened before that, but really your pitch should be no longer than 20 minutes. It should address, you know, the biggest concerns and needs of the investor, because what's going to happen after that pitch is if they're truly interested, they're going to start asking questions. They're going to ask for more information. But your pitch is not supposed to bore somebody to death. It's supposed to give them the really quick, easy to understand, easy to digest, truthful, by the way, very truthful things that they need in order to think, okay, I want to know more. Okay.
And maybe taking a step back again just for a minute, when you were starting a fund, and let's say that let's take today for a real example, right? There is a lot of uncertainty in the market. There may be, most likely will be, some opportunities in the near future. If you were to start a fund, could you start something like an opportunistic blind pooled fund with multiple asset classes in there?
Yeah, of course. You absolutely could do that. Now, the thing that I would caution you against, especially if this is your first fund, is to being overly broad. Because if you're overly broad, you're going to confuse your investors and they're not going to invest. I find that the most narrowly tailored, even my biggest funds are narrowly tailored. So, you know, one of my clients is Grant Cardone, and you know, he's all over the place and does a lot of stuff, and he has a ton of funds. But his funds, if you really read them, are super narrowly tailored. Class A cash flowing apartment buildings in certain states. That's what he invests in.
So Grant wasn't the client wanting to go do value add.
Yeah, no.
He stays in his class A.
He stays in his class A. He stays in his lane. That's what he knows. That's what he's good at. That's what he, you know, so those are the kinds of things that we are looking at when we're looking at, you know, how we want to formulate fund. Now, I've had plenty of funds who've been broader than that for sure, and have had success, but I find the funds that, you know, really, you know, have laser focus on what it is that they do and can tell a really good investment story are the good funds. Now, if you're like a little bit, you know, squirrel, I see this, I see that, I want to get into everything, you know, then you want to kind of couple things together that make sense. Mobile home parks and self-storage facilities, for example, you know, apartment buildings and self-storage facilities, for example, you know, retail, single tenant retail and strip mall, you know, or restaurants, or, you know, those commercial buildings that make sense, like Rich Uncles, which is a big fund, where they've changed their name since then to, like, I think Bricks, but their whole thing was single tenant, and then maybe we'll buy the strip mall behind the single tenant too. You know, like every big fund has a focus of some sort, and it's not just opportunity, because that, again, you know, we talked about returns describing anything. That's also what opportunity can describe. So what's a young entrepreneur to do if they're like, but I see opportunity everywhere? First of all, you're always going to do better if you focus, number one. And number two, you can always start a second fund.
Well said.
So Jillian, so say, you know, let's kind of dive into the nitty gritty then. So say you put together your presentation, you get some investors that are interested in it, you're kind of past that pitch point, you know, legally, you know, getting down into the nitty gritty and kind of tapping into more of your legal side of things.
Yeah.
You know, what are kind of next steps and next documents and you know, what are the key things that an entrepreneur should do to protect themselves? And what, you know, even furthermore, like in your presentation, in your pitch, in your documents, aside from being narrowly focused on what type of product you're pursuing and what type of market, you know, how do you mitigate your risk as, you know, the fund manager or the sponsor?
How do you mitigate your risk? You have really great legal documents, first of all. Like that is key to getting this all done. And I will say this, you know, there's oftentimes I deal with somebody who's really great at marketing, you know, has done a really great job building, you know, their investor base, building interest, you know, educating the public, whatever they've been doing. And then they get, you know, legal documents that say, you know, here are all the risks associated with investing, and they freak out thinking that their investors aren't going to invest. But the savvy investor knows those risks, understands those risks, needs to hear those risks again. And it's your job as a real estate entrepreneur to not just give the shiny object to the investor, but also show them the dark side of investing. That's really your responsibility. And the better you are at that, and the more rock solid your legal documents are, the better it is, not just for you, but for the investors as well. You know, there's a peace of mind with telling them all the different ways that they can lose their money. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it is true.
Yeah, there's almost a freedom in that transparency.
Correct.
You know, Clay, if it's all right with you, I'd like to open up the floor and let Jillian kind of share more about what she is working on as she's talking with us offline before the show, what her new endeavor is and how that's going to be advantageous to our listeners. That's
awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, if we can, because that's just fascinating. So if you would like to take a few minutes and just tell us about, you know, you were with crowdfunding lawyers, of course, and everyone is familiar with that brand. What are you doing next?
So crowdfunding lawyers will still exist. You're welcome to call them if you're ready to go with the deal. Nancy or Jeff will help you out. They're the two lawyers in the firm. And I'm still there. I'm still overseeing things. I'm just not taking new clients like I was. And instead, what I really want to start focusing on now is helping people build out their whole money raising campaign. And what I mean by that is developing that story. I mean, what we were talking about before the show is the problem I'm seeing is that people come to us for these glorious legal documents. We do a really good job, and then people can't go out and raise capital because they don't know what the story is that they're telling. They don't know what the pitch deck should look like. They don't know how to take care of their investors after the fact. And so it's going to be like a before, during, and after approach of before you raise capital, here's the things you have to do. Here are the things you have to do during the capital raising process, and here's what you should be doing after you raise the capital so that your investors continue to like you. You know, that to me, that's one of the biggest downfalls of syndicators and fund managers is that they start off with good intentions, and then they fall flat when it comes to reporting and really getting into really getting back to their investors and telling them, here's what we're in, here's what we're doing, here's how it works, like blah, 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 blah. And the other thing is too, I've been trying to help people with this as a lawyer, but it's really not my job as a lawyer. My job as a lawyer is to protect you legally with really great legal documents, not to help you figure out what your pitch deck looks like, not to figure out what your story is. That's your job. But now I want to help you with that. I'm gonna start helping. You know, we've talked about this with the firm. We're gonna start helping with that, and we're not even ready. So this is like brand new information.
Fantastic! Yeah, great. Let's get it out there.
It's gonna be under a brand called Private Money Rockstar. So if you guys want to go check out Private Money Rockstar, it's gonna be there.
You've had Private Money Rockstar for a while, though. I mean, I remember taking a couple of courses through that.
Yeah.
So are you going to, so as far as the structure, is it online learning modules and live coaching, or how are you going to be setting that up?
Both. It just depends on how far you want to take it. Like I'm going to offer a couple of different things. One, I'm going to take like only 40 clients a year where I'm going to build out their entire system. And then the other people I'm on a call.
That's all right. Hey, Clay and I are we both have kiddos. Hey, big guy. Hi.
Okay, bye. See you later. Sorry, working from home.
Working
Hey,
at
that's
home.
all right. Yeah, we have kiddos.
And one of the good things about coronavirus, I will say, is that I just stopped worrying about that stuff from now on.
Amen.
Like, because I used to freak out, like, get out of my space. But I've become so much more relaxed now that I'm like, you know what? People understand. They
do.
Well.
They do.
So, but for 40 clients a year, I'm going to take, and I'm going to build out their whole system. And then for everybody else, we're going to have online resources, mini coaching sessions, things like that, just to get you where you need to go.
Oh, how exciting.
Thanks. I'm so glad you guys think that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
People are like, you're going to leave law? I'm like, I'm not exactly leaving law. I'm just not going to be your lawyer. Yeah,
right.
Well,
not at the same time, right? We're not the same people, one or the other. I can do one or the other for you.
Right. But the good thing is because of my association with the law firm, that is what we're going to do. I'm going to get you all, I'm going to be the liaison between you and whichever law firm you prefer. You don't have to pick crowdfunding lawyers, but crowdfunding lawyers, of course, is going to give you a big discount.
Yeah, and you will be fully integrated. You know how developers or real estate companies like to be fully integrated. You'll be a one-stop shop for people who want to do this business.
Exactly. That's the whole idea.
Yeah,
yep, absolutely.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, there's a lot of firms that just do entitlements. There's a lot of firms that just do architectural, but like we have a firm here locally that does both of that under one roof, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
exponentially better.
Less to coordinate and just more tailored to the customer or the client. So we applaud you for that. We think that's a great idea.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad.
Yeah, absolutely. So when do you think that you guys will be up and running, or is there any information or anywhere that people could go to learn more about that, at least right now, or is it just kind of in a holding pattern?
Yeah, if they go to privatemoneyrockstar.com, they can just sign up for our mailing list, and once we're ready to go, we'll be blasting everybody out and everything out and telling everybody what exactly we're offering and where they can find it and how they can sign up.
Great. Well, we will make sure and have that in the show notes. Anything else you'd like to say about that, or I've got a couple of other questions for you.
No. Thanks for interrupting this very important podcast with my commercial.
Hey, it's awesome. If we can bring you a couple of people, to sign up, nothing would make me happier.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, let's go on with the questions. These are great.
Can you just give us an idea? Let's say Clayton and I were to come to Private Money Rockstars, right? And we wanted to get you on board as our consultant to help us build our fund. What would you advocate as a good goal for a fund size for a first-time entry?
Let's do this in real time, because I got to ask you some questions before I can tell you. The first question I would ask you is, how much money can you spend in a year?
Great question. Let's start with. And are we just talking about the equity we need to raise, and then we go get traditional, construction loan financing?
Yeah, just like if you were going to buy properties based on what you have right now and what your infrastructure is, how much could you handle this year, and what deals do you think you could find?
Clay, you want to start with 10 million?
I was going to say, yeah, let's do 10 million.
Okay, so 10 million. So 10 million levered. So you're going to lever that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then what properties are you going to buy?
We do primarily retail development, single tenant net leased, out parcel pad development. So new ground up construction and remodel to suit type of stuff.
New ground up, okay.
And Clay Ray, if interrupt me if you want to add in on that.
No, I was just going to say, specifically what we go after is real estate that's underutilized, redevelop that into a single tenant net lease credit asset that we then sell on to the investment market. So
Okay.
so there is a flip play merchant developer versus cash flow.
Where are you? Okay, so you're looking for the end game. It's not the cash flow game.
Correct.
So your audience is really like Gen Xers and millennials.
Interesting you say
Investors?
that. Yeah, yes.
But we do, so these are institutional grade investment opportunities that are, sold to a myriad of different, investment platforms.
No, I got that.
Yeah.
No, I get that's your end buyer. I'm talking about your investor. Sorry. Okay. Tell me, here's the question you're going to get asked from investors. What's happening in the retail market space right now? Aren't a lot of these retail locations going to go belly up?
So again, what we specialize in specifically is single tenant net lease assets, typically QSRs, so quick service restaurants, which, pre-COVID 2019, we're obviously doing very well and booming since COVID. And we know this because we work directly with, the retailers.
Mm-hmm.
Most of their sales are actually up 30% right now versus 2019 because
so you started with the wrong thing. You're talking about single tenant, new ground up construction, underutilized real estate. That does not tell me a story at all. Fast food tells me a story.
Okay.
And I think quick service restaurant makes sense because fast food, using the nomenclature quick service restaurant makes more sense than saying fast food, because fast food kind of has like a stigma to it that it's like bad for you and bad for the environment and bad for whatever. So if you say quick service restaurant, these are recession proof assets that are needed in society. And when COVID hit, they were there for people. They provided meals for people. I mean, these are the stories you want to be telling. And then to an investor point of view, and we are going to build up these businesses and then sell them off to institutions who can take that and run with it on a cash flow basis. We have a long game, and it's not cash flowing right away, but it's gonna pay off big in the end. And that's the story you want to tell. And the why is it's practically recession proof. You started off with single tenant retail, and I thought, wow, that's a hard sell. But when we turn it around and really get down to the meat of what is in there, which is quick service, this fly is going to step at me. If we talk about quick service restaurant, we're talking a totally different game. And quick service restaurant doesn't need to be McDonald's. It can be Panera, right? It can be Starbucks. It can be Dunkin' Donuts. It can be a number of things. Where this is something people still need. Like, it's just like the multifamily. People still need a place to live. People still need to eat.
Yeah.
I almost think you
fantastic.
start with what's it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you approach it from that.
That's fascinating. That's great. It's a fresh perspective. Well, it's a good perspective. It's, because Clay and I are in it all day, every day, and it's great to hear someone else, because we really haven't talked through it very much with anybody. But that's why we wanted to have you on the show and get your opinion and just learn more about what you're up to. We know that you got a hard stop here. Clay, how are we doing on time?
We got 10 more minutes.
We got 10 minutes. No, I want to explore this some more. So
well, and I was going to say, so because
Yeah.
You know what, since I'm going to take this as an opportunity to be the dummy. So I apologize in advance. So, okay. So we have this fund. We've identified that it's, single tenant net lease QSRs that we're going and we're developing. From this point, you're having this conversation with these individuals, right? And you're looking to raise capital. What timelines should you identify? What expectations should you identify when having these conversations? Because my question is, okay, if someone comes up to you, you say, okay, we're trying to raise $10 million. you know, they're like, okay, well, we'll give you $1 million, right, towards your fund. What is your obligation as, you know, as the fund manager to go out there and identify these opportunities? I mean, is there typically a fuse on the capital? And you know, so I guess let me just stop there and have you kind of answer that.
So that's a great question. And the answer is, what we usually do is we set a minimum in the documents, in your legal documents, that say we're going to raise a minimum of X before we spend any money. And that minimum number is set by you. And it's just to give, you know, comfort to the investors. So you had mentioned $1 million. And so what the number is that you want to pick, and it can actually be like a kind of nebulous number. And what I mean by that is you don't have to say it's a minimum of $1 million. You could say something like a minimum that in which we can comfortably close on a property, right? So that could mean anything. And so that's first and foremost, you set a minimum. And then what you say to investors, and look, we're going to have, and we normally set it at this, but you can set it at whatever you want. We're going to have 120 days to identify and close on a property before we have to give you your money back. In the meantime, your money is going to be sitting in our subscription account. You're not going to be a member of the company until such time we close and we move your money over and you become a member of the company. And that's when your returns start accruing. That's when this starts happening. That's when this starts happening. So let's just say you approach that 120-day mark and you're in the middle, you know, closing's just been delayed or whatever. It's real simple. Reach out to your investors and say, sign this thing, letting me keep your money for a little longer so we can close on this property. And then if they don't want to, they don't want to. But at the end of the day, at least you set those expectations and you communicated with them.
So what metrics do investors typically look for in a deal? So again, we have this deal. What type of metrics are they looking for from a number standpoint?
I think at the end of the day, a lot of it's different investors look for different things, right? And so that's why I mentioned Gen Xers and millennials, right? And I actually think your market, now that I'm thinking about it, is wealthier Gen Xers, not millennials. Wealthier Gen Xers who have really good jobs, really good businesses, don't need the cash flow, and understand real estate. I would make this a $10 million 506c fund where you went out and raised money from the public accredited investors. Now you can't have a failure to launch. You have to go out and constantly hit these people with this opportunity through targeted, you know, Facebook ads, with the use of, you know, articles, really putting yourself out there as being somebody who understands the quick service restaurant real estate space. I think it's very niche-y and very interesting, and very much speaks to that crowd. And these are people who do not need the cash flow, right? So what are investors looking for? The first, it always starts with the why, the good story, and then the second part would be, you know, the plan that's going forward. What is the end game? And then third is the return on investment. So cap rate, I can show you an 8% cap rate, and then I can show you why a 3% cap rate could be better.
Yeah.
Especially in your
cap rates they don't tell the whole story. That's for sure.
These people are not looking at cap rate. Cap rate is for the person who's first starting out and investing for the first time and is looking at that Class C, you know, apartment building, and it's a long shot. It may not work out, that kind of thing. I mean, I remember seeing a whole presentation that blew my mind about cap rate, where cap rate went from 8% down to 3%. But if you increase the rents ever so slightly on that cap rate, you increase your net worth that much more on a smaller cap rate. And that speaks to your type of investor more than, you know, the super high cap rate. Like, we're buying it at a 10% cap rate. That means nothing to this type of investor that you're looking at.
So breaking that down even more, Jillian, again, tapping into your consulting side of things, right? Because I mean, it's of interest to me. So say I have this deal, right? We have obviously our basis in the property. We signed a 20-year ground lease, $65,000 a year. We know that this product trades on the market for a 5 cap. We have our exit number. We have our spread. Is that typically what they're kind of looking for? And I guess my question is, from that point, you know, do you identify from a merchant development type of deal, do you say that you're going to, you know, disperse funds upon the exit? How does that typically work?
Yeah, that's exactly what you say. So you say your money's going to be in for 5 years, however long you're planning on holding this property. Maybe it's not even that long. Maybe it's 3 to 5 years. And then we're going to return your money to you. Now, here's a thing that your people might be concerned about. If the property starts cash flowing, when would you start cash flowing, if you start cash flowing at all? Well, or do you exit before you start cash flowing?
Yeah, there's two exit strategies, right? You either refinance out of the construction loan, we put long-term fixed rate debt on it, or we sell it. So I guess we could flex depending on what the investor base wanted to be. Maybe there would be 2 different families in that.
Never look at what the investor base wants. You figure out what the best thing is for the investor base. Because if you start playing to their demands, you have a mess on your hands.
Okay, good point.
Most of them don't.
Well, with that being said, I think generally, you know, we have a 12 to 24 month hold period for these deals, you know, start to finish.
Okay, and then are you going to reinvest the proceeds, or you're going to give back the money?
We would like that option, candidly.
Okay. To reinvest?
Or cash out, either one. Does it have to be one or the other?
It doesn't have to be one or the other, but what I would consider, because this would be a concern of these types of investors, is if you're going to make a cash distribution for taxes. So for example, let's just say you buy a property, your basis is $1 million, and you sell that property for $2 million. So what's your gain? Your gain's $1 million. So you take that $1 million along with the original $1 million. You now have $2 million. You're going to reinvest it. Well, somebody's paying taxes on that $1 million, that gain, and your investors aren't going to be too happy if they're paying taxes on that gain without some kind of tax distribution. So what you're going to want to consider is, if your exit strategy, and sometimes they don't think about it at the time, it doesn't become a problem until it's a problem. So if you're going to do this reinvestment strategy, we're going to reinvest for the next 10 years, and then we're going to give you all your money at the end, then you want to carve out, however, throughout the life of the fund, as we're making reinvestments, we will make cash distributions to the tune of 35% tax bracket.
Gotcha.
That's kind of how you want to do it.
Many layers to the onion that we would need to work through here. But this is fantastic information. And then, Jillian, another question: as an entrepreneur or a group was getting ready to launch, how much capital do you think they would need in order to bring you on for consulting and get just everything teed up? What is there? I mean, I know that's a pretty vague, broad question. Any ballpark figure on what somebody should have as far as their runway to get this plane up off the ground?
I really want you to have, I know this is going to sound like a really big number, but there's a lot to it. I really want you to have budgeted about $50,000.
Yeah, that's not insurmountable. I mean, I thought you were going to say 100, so 50's, reasonable. Okay. Yeah.
Let me give you my really good pricing, which is no, but $50,000, and that's not just for me. That's for, like, here are the things you're going to need. You're going to need a pitch deck. You're going to need a platform. You're going to need your legal documents. And these are the things I'm going to budget the whole thing for you and try and tell you, here, we're going to give money here. This $50,000, your budget is $50,000. I'm going to work within your budget and get everything you need to get done in order to go out to the races and start raising capital.
Grab that checkbook, Clay Ray.
Well, Gannon knows this about me, though. I have no issue spending money on stuff like that, because ultimately there's a lot that can go wrong too. So.
I mean, and by the way, this isn't my pitch to you, but just going through this exercise, I think I could get a lot done for you guys.
Yeah.
Oh man. Woo! All right. Well, we may end up circling back around and asking you to come on the show again down the road. We could talk to you for a long time. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your Friday to come hang out with us and share your insights with our listeners. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. This was so much fun, and I love doing this little deal analysis. This is what gets my blood going. It isn't necessarily putting together legal documents. It's more helping people figure out how to get from A to Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put your information in the show notes, and obviously encourage people to reach out to you, because I think you can illuminate a lot of paths out there for a lot of people.
Fabulous. Well, thanks, guys. I have to run, but let's get together again soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jillian. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.